Hey viewers, my name's Kara, and today on my personal channel I want to talk to you about coming out of the broom closet. That is coming out and being open about your identity as a pagan or any other related type of religious path or spiritual path. Some of you may be wondering why I'm talking about this again, because you've heard me talk about it a lot, but actually what I've realized is that other than the family reaction video I did back in 2009, where actually my mother and I are talking about how she reacted when I told her that I was practicing Wicca, I really have never addressed this topic on my personal channel because all of the other ones are on the Pagan Perspective collab. So you can find those in my playlist on my personal channel of Tuesdays with Cute Witch 772, Pagan Perspective Tuesdays. You can always watch those videos and I will link to them here in case you want to see, what I thought about it in 2010, 2011, 2012, whenever it was that I made the videos. But I really wanted to address it on my personal channel because I am always getting more and more questions about it, so I thought it would be helpful to have this video on my channel. Hello, Sierra. As I always tell people who ask me about this topic, all I can really do is tell you what I did and what worked for me, and maybe that'll give you an idea of something that you would like to try. But ultimately, you know the people in your life better than I do, because you actually know them, and I don't. So you will know what process, what method is going to work best for you, and you may want to actually change the method that you use, whether you're talking to your family member, or your significant other, or some good friends of yours. Depending on who you're talking about, you may not want to approach it the same way. So what I'm going to do is share with you how I did it, and hopefully that'll just give you an idea, but I absolutely acknowledge that not everyone is going to react the way that my mom did, or not everyone is going to react the way that my significant others have in the past. So this is just my view, this is what I did, my experiences, and you can take from it what you will. I am currently 22 years old at the time that I am making this video in May of 2013, and I started studying Wicca and paganism when I was about 10 or 11 years old. For several years before that, I had really known that the religion I was being raised in wasn't for me. I was disagreeing with it a lot, but I thought it was just because I was not understanding what it was they wanted me to know, and I felt like I was just being left out of whatever it was that I was supposed to know. But I really just had a very different view from what it was that I was being taught. So when I was around 10 or 11 is really when I started hearing the words Wicca, pagan, witchcraft, and things like that kind of put out there in reference to religious or spiritual paths. So that was really the point where I started studying it and looking into it for what it really was, rather than just the things I had seen on TV. And my mother knew that I was studying these things because she's always been my closest family member. She was a single mother for most of my life, so I really never kept anything from her. I was always sharing with her, Mom, I'm reading this book about Wicca and it's really cool or whatever. So she was aware the whole time, and that was okay with her. And then I think I was about 13 when my mother and I and various friends of ours got together to celebrate a Sabbath. We got together for an Ostara celebration, and they let me tell them about, what Ostara is and who celebrates it and what it's about. And that wasn't strange for anyone. It was a learning experience. It was all of us together, and they're all very like-minded people. Most of them identify as Christian, but they all had this kind of belief in magic or energy or things like that. So it wasn't weird at all for us to celebrate this festival together. But if I remember correctly, I was 16 by the time that I really realized that even though my mom knew I was studying all this time, she didn't really realize that that's what I considered myself. So I think I was 16 when I just sat down with my mom, and because she knew that I was studying it all along, I'm pretty sure I just flat out told her. And I was like, Mom, I'm studying all this and I've been practicing this for these past years because I actually do think that this is what I believe. I consider myself to be a Wiccan or a pagan or whatever. And I have actually asked her to make a video one of these days about her end of the experience, so hopefully someday you'll be able to hear it directly from her besides that video that we did together in 2009. She has her own YouTube channel. But yeah, so I just told her, and that was kind of the point where she was like, oh, I was okay with you studying this stuff and learning about it, but I really don't want you to be a witch. And what it turned out to be was that she had these really negative connotations, being raised as a Catholic, as a Christian, whatever. She had really negative views of what the word witch meant, or what Wicca was, or what paganism was. And I think a lot of us are in that situation where other people in our families have been raised in a different tradition, which has really negative views of what we do. So what I did then with my mother, the thing that I decided would probably work, was to take the labels out of the equation. And I didn't worry about like, well, Mom, I'm a witch, I'm a Wiccan, I'm whatever. I took the labels, the actual names, out of the equation, and I just talked to her about what I believe. And that went infinitely better because my mother, though she does consider herself a Christian, also considers herself kind of a spiritualist, and she has a lot of the same beliefs that I do. But she has a Christian religious background behind them, and mine is different. But once I took those kind of scary, off-putting labels out of the equation, she was able to talk to me about just strictly, what do I believe, what does she believe, what do we agree on, what do we disagree on? And she really had no problem with what I believed, even if she disagreed with it. She was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, or that's okay, that's not a bad thing, or whatever. And so after that conversation, I was able to say, all of these things that I said I believe, that's what I have learned is what Wiccans believe, or these are pagan beliefs, and things like that. So then I was able to put the label to it after she knew really what it was. So I think what really keeps a lot of people from learning more about it or from understanding what we're talking about is that name that we put to it, because they've been taught that that name is bad, and so they don't even go on to studying and seeing, what it really is. There's kind of a block right there at the beginning that people don't want to go any further. They don't want to listen to you any further because they have been taught a certain way, or they have their own misconceptions or misunderstandings about that term, so they don't want to let you go any further. So that's really what worked for me with my mother. All of the significant others I've had in the past, I have personally always been friends with people before dating them, and I never really planned that. It's just how it worked out. So I've never really been in a situation where you go and have a date with someone who was a stranger beforehand and, you're just meeting them in this dating situation. I've always been friends with the person before we dated and then had a relationship. So my significant others always found out that I was a practicing pagan as a friend before we even got into the relationship. So it was really easy because then when we started dating, they already knew. So I didn't have to go through that kind of, by the way, these are my beliefs. But really, I've just always been very open about it, and I figure if people want to know more, they'll ask, or I'll tell them, if you ever have any questions about it, please ask me. I'm happy to explain to you what I actually believe or what I do, anything you're curious about, so that I can help you understand where I'm coming from, because I don't want that to be weird. That's kind of always been my approach ever since I told my mother, and I considered that the big milestone in my coming out as a pagan process. Anyone else, it's just kind of like, I'm going to be open about it, and I'm going to let them take it as they will. My younger brother knows, but he really doesn't care either way. He hasn't been really curious about finding out more about it, but he also isn't against it, so that's very cool. My extended family, like I said, I've been open about it. I wear pentacles all the time and things like that, and it's on my Facebook page, so any of my family that is friends with me online, they could see it if they looked. So I don't hide it at all, and if they ever brought it up to me, I would be honest about it, but no one's ever brought it up to me, so it's just kind of not something that we talk about. Same thing with my friends. My friends all know, because it comes out. Knowing me for a certain amount of time, eventually it will come out, my views and my thoughts about things. And usually everyone is just very cool with it, or some people will be curious and ask me more about it before they get to a point where they're just like, okay, whatever, that's cool. And other people will just completely let it be and not ever mention it. So however it works has been pretty good for me. I recognize that not everyone has had this experience and these kind of opportunities to talk to people. Not everyone is like that. Some people will shut you out immediately, and I understand that that can be very tough. So I recognize my luck in this kind of situation. But I do think that the best advice I could give to other people who are wanting to come out to anyone in their lives is just to think about why those people might have misunderstandings and misconceptions, and try to come at it in a way that alleviates those worries for them. For my mother, it was the terminology. So I took away the terminology and talked about really just the underlying beliefs, and that helped us. We still do have arguments from time to time, arguments or discussions or just things that she didn't realize we disagreed on, and so every once in a while we'll bring it up and she'll be like, well, wait, but you don't believe this? And so we still talk about it to this day. There are more things that we're learning about each other. But overall, that worked for us, and that made it easier. So whatever it is that you think the other person may have against your religion, try to think ahead. Try to think of the arguments that they might have for you, and as long as you can answer them for yourself, you're probably in a better place to talk about it with other people. The last point that I want to make is that a lot of people tell me that their parents don't allow them to practice, or when they do tell them what their beliefs are, their parents will not allow them to practice. And usually what I say in response to that is, well, what does that mean? What do they mean by practicing? Do they mean that you can't cast a circle and have a ritual, whatever it is that your tradition does? Or do they mean you can't practice at all, as in you can't go out in the woods and go for a walk and feel your connection to the universe? You can't light a candle and say a prayer. You can't meditate. You can't You see what I mean? Practicing to me is so much more than just ritual or doing a spell. So really, if you think about it, if they don't want you to do certain things while you're in their household, like doing a ritual or doing a spell, there are still so many other aspects of your practice, I'm sure, that you can do, that no one can really keep you from doing. For me, recycling is a part of my practice, and people actually do try to get me to stop doing that, but I always do it. It's just recycling, but it's part of my practice. Meditating, things like that. I always think that the best course of action is to just be honest, because the sooner that you tell people, the longer they have to get used to what you've said and to come around to the idea. But I do understand that there are some life situations where some of you really think you just can't tell people. And in that case, it really just has to be up to you. You know your own situation better than I do. Go with what you know is right for your situation. I think I mentioned earlier in this video that I have asked my mother to eventually do a video about this from her point of view, as a non-pagan parent of a pagan. Father Alan also has a YouTube channel. He is an apostolic vicar, I believe. At least his username is Vicar Apostolic. And his daughter is also pagan. So there are other people that you can talk to in this situation. Also, I will be doing a video for parents or for guardians or for the other people in your life, addressing it to them. Because I talked to a lot of you, a lot of us, people in the situation that I was in, about how do I tell my parents? How do I tell my friends? How do I tell my significant other? How do I tell my siblings, you know? So this other video that I'm doing will be addressed to them and what they should know about the situation. It's been a long time coming, and I hope these videos being here helps you. Just my experiences, just my views, but maybe it'll help someone in some way. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.